Hello, my name is Joe Egan. Seven times Irish boxing champion. Sparring partner of the great Mike Tyson. Here at this fabulous gym, the South End Fight Academy, and I just want to thank Simon and Alana for their wonderful hospitality.
Welcome to another Liquid Bullet Productions. Joining me today is a guest I've been waiting for a while for. I'm really pleased to have him on, Mr. Big Joe Egan. Welcome,
thank
Joe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Before we start, I just want to say a big thank you to Mike and Debbie Walker of County Clean Eastbourne. I'm wearing the logo here now today. They're very personal friends of mine. The sponsor, a very personal friend of mine as well, Kane Baker, the boxer. They've helped Kane through his career, and I just want to say thank you so much to both of them. I want to wish them every success, continued success with their business, and Kane, continued success with your career. The big title's waiting for you, Kane. Anyway, Lee,
yes,
great to be here.
So, Joe, we've got quite a lot to go over. You've got been boxing, great boxer in your time.
I wouldn't say I was a great boxer. Listen, every fighter that climbs into the ring, is tough. You don't play boxing. You play football, you play golf, you play tennis, you play basketball. You don't play boxing. You don't play combat sports. You walk that walk to the ring. It's the hardest walk, I believe, that you'd ever make in your life. And when you overcome the fear, because the fear factor with boxing, the butterflies that you get in your stomach, the fear factor, as I said, is incredible. And you can overcome that fear and climb into a ring to fight. You can overcome anything. There's two spellings of the word fear. The coward spells it, forget everything and run. The fighter spells it, face everything and rise. And like I say, you climb into that ring to fight, climb into that cage to fight. You're a man amongst men, or now a woman amongst women, because women are doing the boxing the same as the men are. They're doing the fighting the same as the men are. And fair play to them. They're acquitting themselves so well. I admire every fighter on this planet, because first and foremost, boxing, combat sports, gives you self-respect. Then it gives you respect for your opponent. And if you don't have self-respect or respect for others, you've got nothing. Now, my boxing career, I got to win 7 Irish titles, Lee, which was a major achievement. I wasn't very skillful. I was just tough. And I think my toughness came from getting beaten and battered by the bullies. I had to endure a lot of bullying in my life. When I was a child, I came to the UK. My dad worked on the building sites in the UK, like a lot of the Irish. Ireland's greatest export has always been its people. And I came to the UK to visit my dad when he was working over here with my 4 younger sisters and my 2 younger brothers. And I got beaten and battered by the bullies in the UK because I had the Irish accent. When I went home to Dublin, I got beaten and battered by the bullies in Dublin because I picked up the English accent to mix in over here. So when I went home to Dublin, I got bullied in Dublin because I had the English accent. So when the bullies would finish beating on me, rather than them hit my younger brothers and sisters, I used to jump back up and say, please don't hit them, hit me more. And I got to the stage to where I could absorb punishment like a sponge. The beatings, I became immune to the pain of the beatings. So when my dad encouraged me to box, and my two brothers to box, first and foremost to learn how to defend myself and my brothers and sisters against the bullies. That's really why I started the boxing. I never thought I was going to win. 1 Irish title, don't mind 7. I got to represent my country on 13 occasions, which was incredible. I boxed all over the world, and on one particular trip to America, I was 17. I left school when I was 14 years of age. I was big for my age, and I was on the doors of nightclubs at 15. They thought I was 21 in the club. And I got to go on the Irish team when I was 17 years of age to box in America. I boxed in Atlantic City, and I fought a big Marine sergeant. He was 28 years of age. I was big, but I hadn't got the mature man strength. So when I got in against this big Marine sergeant who was a mature powerhouse of a man, he battered me for 3 rounds. But like I said earlier in the interview, I could absorb a beating because I'd been beaten by gangs of bullies with sticks, batons, bats. When I was in the boxing ring, there was only one man hitting me. So I was actually quite safe in the boxing ring for me. Even if I was getting battered, it was still only by one man, and he had gloves on, and you had a break in between rounds, and you had a doctor at ringside to help you, and you had cornermen to patch you up in between rounds, so it wasn't too bad. It was actually quite safe. The boxing ring was a safe haven for me. It was outside of the ropes that I had all my problems, you know. Anyway, when I fought this big Marine sergeant, I took a beating for 3 rounds. I stayed on my feet, and I took a savage beating. After the fight, Floyd Patterson, who was in attendance, he'd married an Irish lady from Offaly. He took a great interest in the Irish boxing team. He gave me the opportunity to stay on in America. Whatever I did during the fight to impress Floyd Patterson, one of the great heavyweight champions of the world, I was glad I did it, because he gave Paul Fitzgerald, the Irish featherweight from Arklow, the opportunity to stay on. He won, so we know what he did to impress. So after my fight, Floyd Patterson said, you don't have an awful lot of skill, but you got an abundance of courage, and you got a good chin. We can work on your skill. We can teach you skills. You can't give a person courage. You're either born with courage or you haven't got courage. If you haven't got courage, you don't box or you don't fight. So when he said I had an abundance of courage, a man like him complimenting me on my courage was incredible. And he brought me to Gleason's gym, and he introduced me to Al Gavin and Bob Jackson, who'd originally bought the gym off Cus D'Amato, one of the boxing gyms. They were friends with Cus. I got in and I sparred in Gleason's. I sparred with a couple of pro heavyweights, a guy called Art Tucker, and I can't remember for the life of me the other heavyweight. But I'd done okay. I gave a good account of myself. And Alan Bob said there's a 17-year-old heavyweight in the Catskills called Mike Tyson looking for sparring partners. I'd never heard of Mike Tyson. He was knocking men out left, right and centre. I was just so happy to hear that he was the same age as me, 17, because I'd been so used to fighting older men. Anyway, the next day we went to the Catskills. We were greeted by Cus, Camille, Marnie, Tom, Jay, a few of the other people that were there, the Hilton brothers. And then I got to meet Mike, and he was shorter than me, several months younger than me, and he spoke with a bit of a lisp, and I thought, I'm going to batter you. I really believed in my heart and in my mind that I was going to be too experienced, too big, too strong for Mike, because he was younger than me and he was smaller than me. We became instant friends. We spoke about Barry McGuigan, the relationship Barry McGuigan had with Mr. Eastwood, who when I went professional with Mr. Eastwood as well, and years later. And the history of Irish boxing. Mike was like a walking encyclopedia of boxing. He lived for the sport. Anyway, we walked, we talked, we became better friends over the few hours that we walked and talked. And I was starting to feel sorry for him. I thought, I'm going to have to beat you up in sparring tomorrow. But little did I know what this man was capable of doing. He was creating shockwaves in America, and probably shockwaves around the world at that time. I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him. The next morning, we went jogging. We were getting on so well. Come back to the house, had a bit of breakfast, lay down for a few hours, got ready then to go to the gym in the afternoon, got onto the minibus, and suddenly all these big, powerful men appeared from an annex. I'd been staying in the main house that night. And I'm looking at them, and they were walking like men walk into the gallows, walking onto the minibus. But they knew what was coming. Stupid Paddy here didn't know what was coming. I thought they're going to box together, these powerful men, and us two boys are going to box together. Got onto the bus. I was so relaxed, so calm, so confident. When we got to the gym, got into our training gear, bandaged up, shadow boxed, warmed up. Cuss said, right, glove up, get ready to spar. So I'm looking around at all these somber men, very sad looking. And I'm looking around and there's no sign of Mike. Then I look into the ring and Mike is pacing the ring. He's got his shirt off. And his physique was incredible. 17 years of age. There's no way a 17-year-old should have the physique like that. He was just pure power. His biceps, his neck, his chest. I hadn't seen him stripped off. And he was pacing the ring like a lion in the cage, pacing up and down, looking out at its prey when you go to visit a lion in the zoo. And Cuss pointed to one of the sparring partners to get in, one of these big, powerful men. He got in, he got knocked spark out with the first punch. And I'm not ashamed to say I ruined a good pair of underpants at that moment in time. I shit myself. I thought there's no way this 17-year-old boy should have this power. Two more got in, they were dispatched pretty quick as well. I was number 4. And I got battered for 3 minutes. But I lasted longer than the three previous sparring partners. I got out after 3 minutes, having been battered. Two more got in, they took a beating. I was back in again. And I did 2 rounds that day with Mike. And I took a 6-minute savage beating. But the madness in me, because I think the fight, you've got to have a bit of madness in you. The madness in my mind, I believed one day I'd get the better of you, Mike. I never did. I stayed home with him for nearly 2 years. I got battered for nearly 2 years. He made me cry so many times, hurt me so many times. But it was a privilege and an honour to share the ring with probably the greatest heavyweight of my era. And 40 years on, we're still friends. He visited my mother in Dublin, God rest her, 4 times. He used to speak to her on the phone. And she used to say, oh, Mike, thank you so much for looking after my son. She didn't know he was battering me in, week out, battering me to a pulp. But outside of the ring, outside of the beatings that he gave me, he was my friend. He minded me up in the Catskills. We used to go to the cinema. We used to go into New York City. We had some great times. And 40 years on, we're still friends to this day. And I love the man dearly. And he's a very, very, very incredible human being. Yes, he's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Yes, he's the youngest heavyweight of all time. But as a man, he's a good man. And he's my friend. And I'm very proud to say he's my friend. And the confidence he gave me, because psychologically, I believe that if I could take Mike Tyson's punishment, I could take anybody's punishment. And boxing, there's a lot of psychological warfare in. And when the opportunity came up to fight Lennox Lewis in 1985, Lennox had knocked out the American champion, who had knocked out the New York champion in the qualifiers to the American title final. And the New York champion had beaten me in the New York championships. But he never knocked me out. So when the fight came up for the New York All-Stars to fight the Canadian All-Stars, the New York champion cried off because he'd been knocked out by the American champion who'd been knocked out by Lennox Lewis. So Lennox was the star of the Canadian team, and the star of the New York team was a guy called Frankie Lyons, who went on to win the world super middleweight title. He was welterweight at the time. So the 2 stars, one of the New Yorkers and one of the Canadians, went on to shine bright as world champions. So they'd no one to fight Lennox. So I said I'd fight him. So they said, Joe, the man that beat you got knocked out by the man that got knocked out by Lennox Lewis. I said, yeah, but I wasn't knocked out. And if I could take Mike Tyson's punishment, I could take Lennox Lewis's punishment. Anyway, I got in. I did 3 rounds with Lennox. And I gave a good account of myself. I lost on points to Lennox. It was an honour to share the ring with him. He got 2 Olympic medals, In 1984 he got the bronze. He was number 2 in the world. In 85, Pan American Games gold medalist when I fought him in 85. In 1988 he got the world, the gold medal in the 1988 Olympics, and then he went on to win a few world heavyweight titles. So I got to share the ring with the 2 best heavyweights of my era. Neither of them put me down, both of them hurt me. But like I said, every fighter that climbs into the ring dreams about becoming a champion of the world. I wasn't good enough to become a champion of the world, nowhere near good enough. To win an Irish title was a major achievement. To win several Irish titles was incredible. But I dreamed about becoming a champion of the world. Like I said, I wasn't good enough, but I got to share the ring with 2 of the greatest heavyweights of my era. And it was an honour and a privilege to share the ring with them. If you're going to get battered, you might as well get battered by the best. I got battered by the best of my era. When my amateur career was over, I had 105 amateur fights. I won 87 and I lost 18. When my amateur career was over, I went professional. I didn't really want to go professional. I had 4 professional fights. I didn't like getting hit for more than 3 rounds. I got hit for 6 rounds as a pro, then there's 8 rounds, 10 rounds, 12 rounds. It's a long time to be getting hit, especially by heavyweights. So when I went professional, I didn't like it. And I just became a sparring partner. I travelled the world as a sparring partner, sparred with some great heavyweights, sparred with future Tyson opponents, and enjoyed it. In the sparring, you're protected by the big headgear, sometimes body armour, bigger gloves, and I enjoyed the sparring more than I really enjoyed the fighting. And when you're in training camp, if you're in training camp for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, the money you're earning you can't spend, so you save it. So by the time training camp's finished, you've got a few quid saved up. When my boxing career finished because of a car crash, I went into I went into a major depression. And I never understood what depression was. People used to say to me they were depressed, and I said, behave yourself. You don't know what it is until it hits you. It's like the sucker punch from hell. And I had 2 years of a depression because my boxing career was over. I was 25 years of age. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take drugs. I'd live for boxing. I believed boxing was going to make me my fortune. And suddenly it's over. And I couldn't accept it was over because of a car accident. And for 2 years I went into a depression. So now when people say to me about the depressed, I say, listen, get help, don't let it consume me, because it consumed me. And I had to find another avenue for my life. Now I've always had the safety net of security work. I left school when I was 14. I was on the doors of nightclubs at 15. And I've worked security. I've worked every type of security, from static guard, store detective, bodyguard. I was an air marshal with Delta Airlines. I was in the part-time army and the military police. And even now I still work as a bodyguard. So I've always had that safety net of security. Anyway, during my work as a security guard, or a bodyguard as such, I got to share the top table at a dinner event. Ken Purchase put the dinner event on. And I got to share the top table with one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, Joe Frazier. It was a tribute night to Joe Frazier in the Hilton Hotel. And I got to share the top table with Joe Frazier. I'd sparred Mike for his son Marvis. So I'm on the top table with champions of the world, which was incredible. The audience in attendance was celebrities on every table. And I was greeted alongside these world champions by this incredible audience. A man who was in the audience was a guy called Cass Pennant. Now I knew who Cass was because Cass had been the West Ham football fan, and my nephew Tom was a big West Ham football fan, and I knew who Cass was, and I know about him being the book publisher. So half joking, half holding earnest, when I was introduced to Cass, I said, you might write a book about me. And he said, well, let me hear what you've got to say on your talk tonight. I only had a few minutes to talk because the top table was a top table of stars, and I wasn't going to get long. I got a few minutes. Charlie held the compere and they gave me 5 minutes. But for them 5 minutes, I directed everything at Cass, hoping that he'd take an interest in me. After the talk, I come off the stage and I went over to Cass, well, what do you think? He said, you're an interesting character. He said, come to my office tomorrow. He said, we'll have a chat. So I went to his office and he said, if you can get Mike Tyson involved, we might be able to do a book. He said, I'm sure you're worthy of a book, but we need Mike Tyson involved. I phoned Mike. Mike was in Brazil at the time, and I put him on to Cass. And I could hear what Cass said to Mike, and I heard Mike's answer. He said, Mike, we're going to do a book, and if you can get involved in the book for Joe Egan, we could make this book a bestseller. And Mike's answer was, anything for my brother Joe. And I thought, music to my ears. Mike did the foreword for the book. A man called Randall Graham wrote the book. Pennant Publications published the book. And Mike Tyson came over and launched the book in Canary Wharf in London in 2005. Probably one of the greatest days of my life, other than winning the Irish titles, which was incredible. And boxing for Ireland, which was even more incredible. This book launch was up there with them days. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people attended the book launch in Canary Wharf. I know everybody was there for Mike Tyson, but Mike Tyson was there for me. He launched the book. He did the foreword for the book. Several world champions were in attendance. Barry McGuigan, Paul Suki Jones, Charlie Magri, Alan Minter, Frank Bruno attended, Brian London attended. It was just incredible. And like I said, Mike Tyson launched the book. The book became a bestseller. It was re-released a year later with 2 new chapters, one of the chapters being the original book launch. And Cass Pennant and me had become such great friends. And when Cass had a movie made about his life, the movie was called Cass, Nonso Anusi played him in the film. Cass gave me a part in the film. I played the landlord of the Britannia pub. And while I was on the film set, I met an actor called Tamer Hassan, who was an ex-boxer and a great guy. And he said to me, Joe, you've got a great presence on screen. He said, my agent could do something with you. Do you fancy an acting career? And I looked at him and I was sincere and I said, listen, Tamer, I've acted my way through a boxing career. I'll give it a go.